Welcome to Money Matters. My name is Paul Mitchell. I'm a bank commercial lender. I am one of your co-hosts. Also with me is Patty Tawadros with Xercel.
Nice to see you.
My co-host. Nice to see you, Patty. So lots of things happening out there in the business world these days, huh?
Yeah, there really are, especially with the election right now.
Oh yeah, well, and some worldwide events and that type of thing always impacting us a lot more. And social media, lots of social media impact on our businesses and politics and all that type of good stuff. Now you're a social media whiz, aren't you?
Yeah, I think so.
People pay you for that expertise, do they not?
Yes, they do. Absolutely.
What are some trends in social media these days?
Bizarrely, something called Snapchat, which you would think is not going to be something that corporations will want to get involved in. Snapchat is a video that you take and then it disappears right away after somebody views it.
Huh.
Which I would think has nothing to do with business, but strangely enough, it does. And depending on your business model, it could be, I know we're going to talk about real estate today, maybe it could be something for real estate where they could do previews of homes. So if they want to give someone a tour of some sort of exclusive property, they could take them in with Snapchat and do a little video of a tour, and then it just becomes something exciting. People want to follow that realtor so that they can see the really extravagant homes that are going to be shown.
Oh, yeah.
Sort of like Philly Mag will do that that feature where they show some sort of insane home, whether it belongs to a celebrity or an athlete that's suddenly for sale. So it's a fun way to get involved in social media, depending on your industry. It's not right for everyone.
Okay. What are more of the traditional social media that you recommend for your clients?
Again, depending on what industry they're in.
Let's say the state's banking. I'm a banker.
Banking, I would say Facebook, definitely, because you're going to communicate with your end user, not with other bankers.
Okay.
But if you're a commercial lender and you're trying to get other corporations, you're not necessarily getting the corporation, but who you're getting are the decision makers in the corporation who are using social media. And especially the demographic you're talking about, decision makers are probably over 30, I would guess. And that's
Getting younger all the time, but yeah, lots over 30.
But 30 to 65 is a very popular demographic in Facebook. So if you can get the end user where they are hanging out, which is on Facebook, then you're going to be able to push marketing to them in a very subtle way. So you can very targeted way. You can select their age, their zip code, their interests, whether it's real estate or anything specific to a commercial.
So why wouldn't I just stick with LinkedIn, for example?
I was just talking about that today with someone about that today, and I personally don't use LinkedIn myself. I have a LinkedIn page. I have over 500 people that I'm connected to through my career. And I have a page for my company, and we put up new pieces, but I feel like the people that are using LinkedIn are other business people who are trying to network or get something from someone. It's not where people are hanging out and connecting with family and friends and actually spending passive time. So if you can get somebody where they're spending their passive time, they're a little bit, I want to say, disarmed and not on the lookout for something specifically advertising.
Well, how do you use social media from your business?
We share marketing pieces, new client projects that we're excited about.
This is on Facebook?
Yeah, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. We use all the channels relative to our business. And we have another business where we're doing luxury stationery. And that one, it's really fun to share photographs of projects on Instagram. So it's really about your audience and about what you need to share. So for real estate, again, super easy to share photos and create albums in Facebook and share links to that to your website from Twitter and to blog about stuff. It really is very specifically needs to be tailored to who your audience is, not to just what you like to use.
Now, would you call yourself a small business?
Yeah, I would say so.
So you're part of that massive tens of thousands, millions of small businesses in the U.S.
Yeah.
How's small business doing these days? What do you say, your peers?
I personally think it's great. I think some people are nuts when they say they're going to start a small business now. I think how much anxiety I had early on in my career, and even now after 15, 16 years, I still have moments of total panic when I think things are really good. What if it changes?
Yeah.
Am I prepared for the future? So I think that it's really good, and the economy is doing well, and people are spending money, budgets are looser. What about you? From the commercial side, do you see people actually borrowing money more often?
Well, relatively speaking, yes, but not to the extent that I guess banks would like to see. Banks are primarily oriented toward building their loan portfolios because they lend money out and they earn interest. That's one of the primary functions of a bank. The difficulty is finding businesses or enough businesses that want to borrow that are highly qualified
I think
for the
that's
kind of
key,
borrowing they're
right?
looking for.
So let me ask you, when we're talking about real estate a lot today, you have these people that are the builders that are doing 3 and 5 and 10 row homes.
Well,
in
yeah, especially if it's
communities?
3 to 5. If you start going 10, maybe that's getting to be more of a real professional business.
But is that considered commercial or residential?
Well, it's definitely commercial. That is
Yeah.
residential real estate really, from my perspective, and we'll find out from our featured guest, Chris Nisbet, later on. But it's you and I with our own individual home. We live in the home. It's owner occupied.
Okay.
A home that's owner occupied. Commercial real estate can be owner occupied if it's a business that owns its own real estate. Could be a car dealership, for example, or it could be a shopping center that somebody develops a shopping center and finds 15 tenants to occupy it, or it could be an apartment house that they're going to find 60 people to rent individual apartments, all rental income oriented. So
Do you
there's different
have a-
aspects of it.
Do you have a favorite kind of deal that you thought was more fun than another,
Well,
or more interesting, maybe?
an owner-occupied deal is one of the best. And I'll talk about a specific small business that I was working with recently. It's a small business that's been in the, I guess, provides a kind of construction materials for homes and businesses. And they've been in business for about 10 years, renting. So here's a guy and his wife that were working for somebody else in the same industry. And after a bunch of years, 5 years, the guy knew his business pretty well. Thought he could probably do better. He could make more money on his own, whatever. Knew some people in the industry, prospective customers. Rented a building. So he's renting. So 5, 6, 7 years later, he's making some money. He's got money in hand. Doesn't spend all his money. He wants to buy the building that he's renting. He'll lower his occupancy expense and start to build up an estate, and also have the certainty of what's going to happen. If you rent, your lease is for a year or 3 years or 5 years. Into that term, who the heck knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, you build out your space exactly the way you need it. Who
That's
wants
right.
to move?
You're not going to recover that. Sure.
Was he able to buy it?
Yes, he
The
said.
building he was working in.
Yes, renting. Yeah.
So he got his landlord to sell it to him.
Well, the landlord was apparently 2 brothers. The story I got. One died.
That's
What do the heirs-
unfortunately convenient.
Well, what do the heirs want to do? They don't want to, own half a building that they could care less about. They want cash.
Right.
So the other brother said, "Well, I guess we sell the building." So,
Well,
but
it's
that's a
great
great
for
story
him.
because
Yeah.
it reflects that the company is prospering, is growing, it's making money, and the entrepreneurs are dedicated to the business. Many times, a small business person, if the company makes $100,000, they'll pull out $100,000, and 4 years later, and they have a nice home at the second home at the shore and a boat and nice cars and that type of thing, and then they come in for a loan. They want to buy another building to expand or something. And it's, well, what's the net worth of the business? Well, it's zero. Well, it made a lot of money. Where'd it go? Well,
It's a little terrifying.
So
I find
there's-
it confusing. What are you supposed to do with all that cash? You're supposed to just leave it in the bank and just keep paying taxes on it.
or invest it in other assets of the business. Leave a good part of it in the business so you can show the business is growing. And indeed, later on, this couple, when they're in their 60s, they're going to want to try to see if they can pretty up the company to sell it and make a lot of money on selling it to somebody else. Now, if they sell a company that has a deficit net worth and doesn't show that it really made any money in the last 4 years, who's going to pay a lot of money for it?
Yeah.
So they're going to definitely go into a planning, if they do it right, into a planning process for several years to, I'll say, pretty up the business.
That's what I've been
Make it
thinking
attractive
about
to a buyer.
myself. From some of the guests that have been on the show, they talk about planning, and
Yes.
I never thought I would talk to a wealth manager so early in my career until I realized that they help you strategize to sell your company. So I'm going to actually meet with one of the former guests of the show to work on
Well,
that.
that's probably the holy grail to a wealth manager, to a financial planner. Somebody, a business owner, sells the business, now has all this cash. How are they going to invest it?
So they're in with you already. They've built that relationship, and now they'll take your cash.
Right.
Yeah,
So lots of different aspects to the business.
makes sense.
We have a question from one of our listeners.
Oh, ready?
Yeah, and I think this question is right up your alley, Patty. The question is from John Jensen of Exton. What areas of the software business have the fastest growth for a long-term investment?
I'm not in finance, but does that make sense? Fastest growth and long-term investment in the same sentence?
Well, that's what this gentleman's looking for.
Yeah,
He wants
so
to make it. He wants it to be fast, and he wants to have it permanent.
well, I would say I thought about that because I saw the question earlier, and I'm going to say, I always say the same answer, wearable technology, Fitbits, things like that. But the reason I'm going to give this time is because people are obese in this country. Diabetes is on the rise. And I looked up the statistics. So it's 86 million people are pre-diabetic and 29 million people have diabetes.
And we have about a population in the country of about 300 million.
Yeah, I forgot to look that one up. So
Okay.
1/3 of the
And
population.
most of those are older than 10 years old.
Yeah, right. This is over 10 years
Yeah.
old or 12 years old.
Yeah.
So with such a high population of prediabetes and diabetes, I think any sort of gimmick that gets people to think about their weight, and they feel like if they're wearing a Fitbit, they're going to walk more and suddenly lose weight without doing anything. It changes your mental attitude, and then people buy them. You don't see super fit people buying Fitbits. You see people that are slightly out of shape that want to lose weight buying Fitbits. So when you think about who's wearing them, it's that population. So I would say investing in maybe, I'm not an investor, but in
But
someone to give
you're
advice.
You're in technology.
Right,
So
but
we call that
yeah.
part of software or whatever.
So the company Fitbit, they're public. You could
Yeah.
invest with them, or you could research someone that's building apps specifically for fitness related to diabetes or pre-diabetes would be a good,
Yeah.
I feel like a
good-
good audience.
And a good start. So certainly you got to investigate the company a lot more than just on the surface. Boy, it sounds like a nice technology and a nice market and that type
Right.
of thing. What are their finances like? Who are the people? How experienced are they? Et cetera, et cetera. How do they finance themselves? How do they look to the future? Et cetera. There's a lot more goes into it than simply make an investment and then say, that's it. I don't have to look at it anymore. I'm going to make a
Right.
lot of money. Things go up and down too. Well, thanks for the
Absolutely.
question.
Yeah.
So now I think we're ready to move on to our featured guest.
Well, actually, I think, what if somebody wants to send a question in?
There's a good point. I think to send a question in. Here's how to send in a question to Money Matters.
You can have your questions answered on Money Matters. Please go to our website, money-matterstv.com. On our homepage, click on the banner on the right that says, Send us your questions. While you're on our website, you can find information about our host and guests, as well as show notes and links about this show and past shows. Money Matters is also available as a podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, so you can listen to Money Matters while you're on the go. That website address, again, is money, M-O-N-E-Y, -matters, M-A-T-T-E-R-S, TV.com.
And now I'd like to introduce our featured guest for this program. I'd like to introduce to you Chris Nisbet, Associate Broker with J. Carroll Molloy Real Estate.
How are you doing today?
Pleasure. Thanks for joining us.
I'm thrilled to be here.
So they're all types of real estate.
All types.
And you cover the gamut pretty much?
I do. I work for an unusual firm that actually sells residential and commercial real estate. And I cut my teeth on both 20 plus years ago.
Okay. Which is your favorite?
Oh, there's such great things about both. The wonderful thing about residential is people always need a place to live.
Yeah.
Babies are born. Unfortunately, people pass away. People get divorced. So there's always something that's going to move in residential real estate. Whereas I like commercial in that it's much more of a critical thinking decision. Not a lot of emotion attached to it. So much less chaos during a commercial real estate transaction than residential.
Not as personal emotions
Exactly.
and all that type of stuff.
Exactly.
Sure.
The numbers work or the numbers don't work.
Yeah. So do you represent both sellers of commercial real estate and buyers, or how does
Absolutely. Sometimes both at the same time. So yes, we can represent both parties in the same transaction.
Oh.
That is a perfectly legal thing to do in the state of Pennsylvania. And though some consider it a conflict, it's actually a really good way to have an effective communication when there's only one communicator versus two.
Interesting.
Do the buyers and sellers, when it's, and I've always thought about this, if you're representing both parties, do they feel like they're getting the best negotiation?
That's a good question, and it is it's sometimes difficult for realtors to represent both parties in the same transaction, but when it's done well and it's done righteously, then it can be done and it can be extremely effective.
Well, so what areas do you cover?
I cover areas of Bucks and Montgomery County and some areas as close to the city in the Chestnut Hill area. Sometimes I've done some investment real estate in the Cheltenham area of the city, so all probably within a 20-mile radius.
It's a really good spot to be, Bucks County, because of its proximity to New York City and Philadelphia.
It is. Sometimes I feel like it's smack dab in the middle. We have commuters into Manhattan and we have commuters into the city of Philadelphia. So we are kind of right in the middle. Right
And a
smack
lot
in the
more
middle.
affordable than New York, right?
That's the rumor. I know it doesn't seem affordable now to people that are buying houses because the market's pretty healthy.
It's interesting.
What's the difference between a broker and an agent?
Oh, that's another good question. A broker and an agent. Well, actually, there are very few brokers. There used to be a lot more, but in the last 2 decades, when the society became a bit more litigious, real estate agents. There's probably about 1 real estate broker to 20 real estate agents. It is a different level of education, a number of more classes to take. To get a simple real estate license to transact real estate, you simply need to not have a felony and be more than 18 years of age. Real estate school takes about 6 weeks to go through, and you sit for an exam and you're done. You're licensed to sell real estate.
Commercial and residential?
Either one.
Okay.
Though the practices are very different, you are licensed to sell either one.
And you get a license number.
You do. Then that license gets pulled out of Harrisburg and immediately must be hanging with a real estate broker. So a real estate broker, the difference is a real estate broker can train real estate agents, teach real estate agents, and they can own and manage real estate offices. Whereas a licensee cannot manage other realtors or teach other realtors.
Do you think it's worthwhile to become a broker?
I think that there are fabulously successful financially realtors without a broker's license. I think a broker's license is for somebody that eventually wants to own their own practice and maybe teach others and train others.
So we were talking about small businesses and the value of them and building an estate and that type of thing. As a real estate agent, you retire, there's nothing left.
You stop working, the money stops coming in. That's correct.
But as a broker, there's people, agents that are working for this brokerage, and there's still cash flow and that type of thing.
That is correct. In fact, a broker's license has valuable just in and of itself. So I could hang my broker's license somewhere just to keep a legitimate office for somebody, on somebody's behalf, and be paid just to have a broker's license hanging.
Oh.
Absolutely. It's done all the time, believe it or
It's
not.
like a taxi medallion.
It is, exactly.
Before Uber and
Exactly.
Lyft came into play.
Though I am not that type of broker because
Yeah.
I would want to know my broker's license is in jeopardy if somebody that has their license hanging with me does something wrong. So if one of my agents in my office has a violation, then they might get fined, but I'm going to get fined twice as much, if not
Wow.
more. So there is a higher level of expertise held out for a broker.
So you need to review, if you were running the office, you have to review all the sales.
Absolutely. You want to know what your people are doing and
What they're saying.
What they're doing, how they're writing a contract. Absolutely. It matters.
What would you say to somebody that was looking to get into real estate? I mean, there are all kinds of, whether it's a young person out of college, perhaps a second career person, or another one is even, I guess, the retired people, because you don't have to work necessarily 40, 50 hours a week in real estate, I suppose. So what kind of advice would you give to those?
Well, this
those
is a topic actually that's pretty passionate to me because I believe that over the last decade, a lot of people got their real estate license in the hopes that they could just cherry pick, maybe sell a neighbor's house here and there, make an extra $10,000 to $20,000 worth of income. It was held out as almost a part-time career that board people that just didn't have to work, did just to keep themselves busy. But the fact of the matter is, nobody can practice real estate effectively part-time. You really can't. As you know, in lending, the rules and regulations are moving targets. Would you agree with that?
Compliance is the biggest issues in banking.
It is
Sure.
so true. And even though that is your expertise, real estate, the transaction is my expertise, we still have to know a little about everything. And for somebody to come in part-time and try to effectively counsel and guide their client is just not the right way to do this. So I would say to anybody contemplating a career in real estate that number one, you have to commit to it, and you have to commit to it full time. You need to align yourself with somebody that cares passionately about doing it right. Skill and knowledge is critical. It is critical. You can make your phone ring by having your picture on the placemat at the pizza parlor, or you can make your phone ring by delivering skill and knowledge and world-class service. So that is, the latter of the two is the way I fly.
Are there courses that you take each year to stay up
Yep,
on the rules?
there's continuing ed, just like there is for an accountant, an attorney, a doctor. There's continuing ed that we need to fulfill every couple of years.
to keep your license.
Correct.
Okay.
And it costs between $1,000 and $2,000 a year to maintain it with the different boards of realtors that you need to be members of and things along those
So
lines.
if I decided to become a real estate agent,
Then you'll have to come and talk to me.
okay, how long, and this is an open-ended question and lots of answers to it, how long would I anticipate having to be doing it before I could make a livable income?
If you were working in my firm and I was mentoring you, which is what I do, I train the new agents in my practice, I would tell you that I usually guarantee anybody beginning in the business a certain salary through their own efforts and mine helping them along. But I would tell them year 2 is when things will start to kick in. So you need to expect to spend money in your first year and expect to work hard. You'll be able to support yourself, but year 2 is when I would expect, year 2 and 3 is where I would expect you to be into the 6 figures.
Okay, because if I started tomorrow, I'm not going to probably find somebody that's going to list their house with me in the next couple of weeks, for example.
Your friends, your family, come on.
and then after that, somebody looks at interested in buying the house, they have to go through their process to get financing. It's not going to close for
Exactly.
probably several months.
We're 90 days to 120 days out
Yeah.
on transactions now.
Sure,
You're right.
Sure.
Your first paycheck is probably not going to come for 120 days.
Yeah.
It's hard to work 40 hours a week to do and not get paid for a while.
Right. And there's a lot of uncertainty. I mean, like in the banking business, we have a good prospect. Find out a few months later, no longer a prospect.
Well,
So
For a variety of reasons.
pre-qualified, right?
it's that's very true. The mortgage process for I can't say that the commercial process has changed drastically in the last since 2008, but the residential process has changed a lot for people.
Paperwork is not going away.
The paperwork is not going away. There is nothing last minute anymore. There's nothing done at the settlement table, by the way. Everything is done a week prior to the settlement table. Settlement table is the celebration table. There is no stress anymore at settlement. The stress comes the weeks prior.
Let me ask this, not being in real estate at all. I hear it on TV shows when they say it's a cash buyer, like that's a big deal. But if you have a pre-qualified buyer, is it that the deal could fall apart? Is that why a cash buyer is more valuable?
Sellers and sellers agents love cash buyers for a couple of reasons. Number one, because the mortgage process is so incredibly complicated under the best circumstances now that it bypasses all of that complication. And the bigger issue is appraisal. With a cash buyer, an appraisal is not necessarily needed. And because real estate has been a little unpredictable, it's been in my world, it's been extremely healthy for the last, I'm going to say 5 years. It's been just wonderful and consistent. But appraisal is a big issue. Appraisal is a big issue.
Curious about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So a cash deal, you don't need to have an appraisal.
Okay, I would love to have a cash deal for my place. But one other question I had is like there's so much new development in Center City and there's tax abatements and all this crazy stuff. And the only real Bucks County town I know is, let's say, Doylestown. area. Are there any exciting big projects happening there?
I'm on one right now, which is a high-end condominium development, which is just 20 units, but fabulous. In the selling for almost $350 a square foot, which doesn't seem like much. Compared to Center City, but $350 a square foot is pretty expensive for residential.
So 1,000 square feet is $300,000.
Oh yeah, we're selling 2,000 square foot condominiums for $725.
That seems really expensive.
I have, but
right? That's not a
it
deal.
does. I have 3 left
And then you,
out of 20. So
Congratulations.
there you go.
and then you get to pay a monthly condo fee, right?
Ooh, but a mere $550 turns it into turnkey. It's turnkey at $550
a month for a new development.
Absolutely.
Got to cut the grass.
They've got to cut the grass and maintain the elevators and the exterior.
Wow, I thought those high condo fees were only in the city for these old
Oh
buildings, not
no,
new.
Yeah.
of course not. No, they still have to maintain all the limited common elements and the common elements.
Well, that's good. Is there a big buy-in as far as a deposit you have to make to the
5%
common
down.
fund?
Oh yeah,
No.
not too bad. It's $2,500 for a capital contribution.
Oh, that's not bad.
And they're right on budget. We've had our first couple of homeowners association meetings, so the developer's doing well.
Yeah, that's
What
great.
are investors doing these days? We're going to have a few more minutes left. but
Okay,
I'd
wonderful.
like to touch on that.
Investors, interesting. Of course, in the early 2000s, 2001 to 2006, investors were buying and flipping. That was the thing to
Sure.
do.
Individuals.
I was one of those realtors that would sell 7, 8, 9 houses in a clip on one afternoon because I had people standing in line for me. Those days are gone. The flip is really, the margin isn't there to do the flip anymore. So we're looking, most of the investors now that have survived the last decade, which are the people with money, are looking for cap rates. They're looking for good cap rates.
Yeah.
And as you know, the capitalization rate goes up higher when the real estate is cheaper. When you're spending big money on the real estate, then your cap rates in the Doylestown area, and investors is happy to get 7 to 10. Happy to get 7 to 10 in Doylestown. 10 would be great. I would buy something with a 10% cap rate in Doylestown. So it goes back to the old saying, real estate is about location, 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 even for investors. So.
Interesting. So any final comments about your business and something really positive?
I am, this has been an exciting year. We spoke a little earlier about, election years being tumultuous and a lot of people just don't know what to do. That the real estate market has been extremely healthy. If it's priced right, it will sell.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Chris.
You are so welcome.
Sounds
Thanks
like
for having me
You
on.
are an expert in real estate, residential and commercial, and you've been doing it for a long time. So
Long
I
time.
think you sound like somebody that people
I
should
love
go
what I
to.
do. Love what I
Excellent.
do.
That's terrific. That wraps up our program right now, but our next guest will be Mark Mulholland of the Matthew 25 Fund, MXXVX. That's in Roman numerals. So thank you very much for watching our show, and remember, your money matters.